Christian podcast in the entire universe. That's right, my friends. My name is Beto Gudiño, all the way from Costa, Mexico, California. It's Costa Mesa, but I'm from Mexico. You guys know me. Today we have a very deep, profound, important topic, probably the number one topic in our society, in our entire world today. Okay, I'm not even going to say what topic. We're just going to go deep into it. And today we have Lena Cebula with us today. Okay, so let's welcome her to the show.
Hello, guys. Thank you so much, Beto, for having me. That's like really cool soundtrack to come into.
Nice.
Sounds
Yeah.
like
First we
fun.
party, then we go deep. Right?
Yes.
Okay, Lena, how you doing today?
Really good. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're going to start with an emoji reaction, all right? So we're going to our Beliefo-meter to kick off the episode. We go to the emoji tombola. And today we're kicking off with the divine emoji. Divine emoji. Okay, Lena, so this is your idea. Why are you resonating with the crown emoji today?
Well, definitely. And it's interesting that I picked the crown because all day today I was thinking that I'm a daughter of the king and I'm a precious and I'm priceless and I'm royalty. So when you show me those emojis, I'm like, I have to go for a crown. I am a princess.
Wow, love it. Okay, there we have it. She is a princess. All right, my friends. Okay, so today's episode is pretty deep, and I had a few shows before where I talked to people about topics like pornography or sexual sin and things like that. And I think I've never spoken with a person that's kind of like on the other end of these situations, and I think for a topic that's really big in our society, we usually hear from the people that are kind of like on this side of the story, right? But not on the other side. And I think today I only have one question for you, Lena, and really my question is, what is your story?
Yes, absolutely. I love being sharing my story right now, but honestly, after 20 years of silence, I could have never imagined that one day this story gonna be broadcasted all over social media, that I'm gonna be standing in front of hundreds of people and sharing my story. Because in the past, I was afraid of judgment and rejection because I thought it was a story of shame, guilt, and condemnation. But now I know it's God's story of salvation, of overcoming adversity, and thriving after trauma. So I was born and raised in Ukraine, and my parents really struggled in their marriage. So they became an alcoholics and lost well-paid jobs. The government turned off the electricity and hot water for outstanding bills. And my home was infested with black mold, cockroaches, and mice. It was really
Wow.
nasty. And I was hungry all the time. I was literally starving. And I have a home full of strangers who brought booze and drugs, but they actually brought food as well. So it was my opportunity to eat. So I was mingle between those adults all the time. So from very young age, I became an easy target for those guys. And my parents didn't protect me, government didn't protect me, police didn't protect me. So I was really abused and beaten and raped numerous times in the basement of my own apartment. And when I really thought things couldn't get any worse, 1 month before my 15th birthday, I woke up with severe abdominal pain, and I was scared and confused only to realize that I was actually in labor.
Wow.
I didn't know I was pregnant. I didn't know who her father was. So my baby died 3 months later from health complications. And honestly, I carried this teeny tiny casket to the cemetery in my arms. And for next 20 years, that image like plagued in my mind and my soul. I I suffer with anxiety and panic attacks and depression, and I start using alcohol and drugs to medicate my pain because it was easier to be high and checked out for a while rather than feel like worthless and hopeless and helpless and so broken. So I actually start using heroin because it would hold like the most time. I actually never thought about the fact that I never tried to kill myself per se, but I thought if I don't wake up, it's gonna be okay. So this is my lot. And then years went by, I hardly remember anything. But then one day I have like almost like this moment of awakening, and I was so tired of this lifestyle. But there's no hopes or dreams for the street junkie. And then I saw people like dying around me. People went to jail. And I thought I didn't want to go any of those ways. So I was looking for some kind of like way out. And then through our mutual friend, I met this lady. Oh my goodness, guys. She was wealthy and beautiful, and she was kind, and she was compassionate to me. And you have to understand, long time I didn't have this kind of interaction with people who actually care. And she brought me to her house. She offered me fancy coffee and sweets, and she's like was so loving that I felt safe. I felt like really wonderful. And then she offered me a job. There was no specifics, just a job. And I was so eager to escape. So I agree without really much thinking. Like now I know there was so many red flags and I could be thinking. But the fact is that the way how it's all work out, I just said yes. I said yes to anything they asked me to do. So her team went to work, and then like I still was like on heroin. I hardly remember airport or how I went through customs. I'll never know. I just one morning woke up hearing this Muslim call to prayer. Allahu Akbar, ran out. So I was like so confused because I was in a foreign country,
Wow.
and yeah, I ended up in Cairo, Egypt, and then they forced us to crawl under the barbed wire where they sold us into brothel into Israel. So there, actually, which is bizarre, like it's very important what brothel you end up in because the girls who came with me were missing, died, never heard of again. So I've been bought by a family business, and I actually had two bodyguards who would protect me. So honestly, by default, I quit heroin because there was no another dose and I survived. Then I was clean, like physically, and they fed me and I made money. So you thinking like, oh my gosh, this is horrible situation, but compared to back home, this is literally was almost upgrade for me. And the craziest part that one of my bodyguard was sharing the gospel with the girls, and nobody ever stopped him.
Wow.
And I was so attracted to this human being, not physically or sexually, but he was like man that I never met a human like that. Because in my life, man was violent, angry, drunk, abusive, like all this like evil thing that we do as a human. And I know like it just it's just life, it just I know right now I do understand like why we behave like that because There's so much trauma. So hurting people hurt people, like Joyce Meyer said. But it was interesting because he was talking about God, and I never heard anyone to speak like that. So he gave me his kids' Bible. He was sharing the stories, and when my grandfather actually have a heart attack, he brought me to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem to pray. And God actually heard and answered my prayers because I knew that people like me don't deserve any mercy. And I was like filled with this sense of shame, but God showed up. And now, after all these years, I thought, God is so cool. He's so amazing. He heard me when I came from like brothel to pray to him. I was like alcoholic, drug addict, prostitute, and he just saw my heart and he saved my grandfather. And actually, this is what triggered me to leave this kind of business. And guys, this one thing, you would never leave this kind of situation alive unless you have been rescued. Again, by the grace of God, I was allowed to go home after almost 2 years. I pay all my dues and I was free. And one of my other bodyguard, who was like a brother to me, stole and cheated me out of all of my possession that I accumulate. And my trustworthy aunt back home stole and spent all my money. So all my dream to start a new life and build something different for myself just disappeared. So I ended up on heroin again and became a right hand of number one drug dealer in my city. So I had unlimited amount of drugs, money, influence, but it wasn't safe because I knew I'm gonna die of overdose or end up in jail or like even being murdered for that drugs and money. So this time I willingly sold myself into sex trade because that's all I knew. And this time they brought me to Canada. But here in Canada, I was over 20 years old when first time in my life I heard about human rights. So I took the risk and I ran away. And I live in shelter. I learn English from level zero. And in 2000, um, 2011, I give my life to Christ through my husband's now family. And now I'm a mama of three kiddos. I am Christian. I published my autobiography about the miracles of God in my life. Actually, it's called Miraculous, My Journey from Hell to Heaven. And now I share my story publicly. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity, Beto, to share this story with your audience.
Wow. No, I'm super grateful, and I can. I don't have any reference in my mind for the kind of story you're telling me. Like, this is it. I just wanted to come here with that one question because I've never heard any story like that in my life, nor have I experienced like being part of something like that. And so I mean, one, it's miraculous for sure that God has you in a totally different space now with a family, and I want to talk about in a little bit and how redemptive family is for you. But before we do that, just kind of like a couple maybe questions that spurred out in me when you were talking. One is like, what was the age when you were kind of like in Israel? How old were you around that time?
Yes, I just turned 18 because I remember they brought me to get the passport, the traveling documents. And that's one of the points when I was like, why do I need that? And they actually, uh, there was like part of grooming. That's why I'm talking about this time too, about grooming, because sometimes people get lured into it, just like it happens with this lady. She was kind to me. They dressed me up. They brought me to salon. They cleaned my hair, they got me documents. And my husband working upstairs on his laptop, and he's like, the power went out. I'm like, why? He's like, well, I don't know. And he went check, and I hear, and I'm like, okay, how long it's gonna be? What is that? And then I hear like boom, it's our security alarm, like a security for the house when
Mm-hmm.
online. I'm like, what? So you just cut me off, you know? So bizarre. Yeah, like so many weird things happening. And
Mm-hmm.
I have like tons of people praying for me because of this book release, and I'm speaking, and I actually have like huge presentation on November 24 where I'm gonna sell my book, and there's not Christian audience too, and they already bought my book before and they loved it, so they actually called me to speak, and I'm bringing the book. And she's like, and I give you a table. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is God's story going everywhere. So while I'm so excited, my kid got sick. Like I have like weird dreams, you
Mm.
know, everything like start happening. That's
Wow.
why I'm walking around and tell that I am a child of God and then daughter of the King, and you cannot scare me. But this
Mm.
isn't that crazy how it's happening? So yeah,
Yes.
so I'm glad that we can come back and just restart it, because I was like, man, that was so good.
Hmm. No, I think that speaks to the like how powerful this industry is, and the darkness that's in this industry, because this is the number one problem in the world, right? Like the internet
Mhm.
came, and then this whole thing
Yeah.
with pornography. But what's on the other end of pornography? Well,
Hmm.
it's people who have been slaved into this type of life,
Yes.
and it's big. I mean, it's I can only imagine how much. I mean, and I've heard the stories, right? How much money is poured into this
Hmm.
industry. So the number one industry in the world. So there's is no. I mean, for sure, we're gonna need prayer. And I was even praying, as kind of like we
Thank
lost
you.
we lost power. I'm like, okay, I kind of forgot to think. Wow, this we are fighting against principalities of
Amen.
darkness, right, and power. So this is real. This is real, and your story is so important. So you were telling me you were around 18 years old when you were moved to Israel, and you had all these people working, kind of like two security guards that kind of protected you in a sense. And the other question I had, because you mentioned two other things that caught my attention. One was that God answered your prayer. So I was gonna ask you, what were you praying back then? And the other one is just kind of like to understand how this works. Did you speak English back in the day? Was what was your like mother tongue? Was there any? Did that have any role in because I mean you're in different countries, right? So what's kind of like the common language everybody speaks? Did you pick up English when you were little, or did you have to learn it? What was kind of like the 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 language that moved people around in this business?
Yes. No, honestly, it was very interesting. When I was trafficked from Ukraine, everybody spoke Russian. But when live in Israel, I actually was able to speak Hebrew, which is very interesting because I was thinking in Russian, and then I could translate. I learned like bunch of words, and I could put it into Hebrew. I could even like sing songs. It was so bizarre. I couldn't read and
Wow.
write, but it was very, very similar structure of sentences as back home. So I didn't know how to learn. This is how I just, it was necessary to communicate. So that's how I learned, which is so funny. When I came to Canada and tried the same approach, it was disaster. It
Mm.
took me 3 years just to figure out how to put the words together so it would make sense, because it's completely opposite. So if I was using the same approach, it was like bunch of nonsense. Nobody could understand what I'm talking about. But as you guys noticed, I am a mouth in the body of Christ, so I want to speak. So I was looking for different avenues. Like I took ESL classes. It's the English as a second language here in Canada. So I actually learned how to speak and structure properly. And probably it took me 3 years when I realized, oh, I actually thinking in English. Or
Mm.
oh, I can speak. And it was really hard, and it was very frustrating to learn new cultures, rules and regulations, try to figure out where you fit in and like how to survive. But the difference between these two countries, that in in Israel, I knew that I was enslaved. You
Mm.
know, I knew that I have no freedom to go by myself anywhere, or that they I had no documents. I didn't have any rights. I knew that I could be deported anytime, and we have like few police raids as well. So I knew that I was just a tool. You know, I could be here, I could be there. Like, you know, I could be dead or missing. But
Mm.
what interesting though about this well-oiled machine, because police came to our brothel and they didn't take the girls, you know? So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. But I'm like, okay. But when I was actually leaving, I told you guys that I was like illegally there. So like I didn't have visas necessary to actually be in that country because I was crawling under barbed wire, these tunnels that they have like in the middle of the desert. And when they look into my passport, where I was almost 2 years, do you think somebody arrested me and questioned and investigate and give them consequences? No, they look into my passport, they look at me. I was like less than 20-year old or somewhere around 20-year old. Now I'm still thinking a kid because I have a
Mhm.
16-year-old and it's still a kid, you know? So they look at me, look at my documents, look at each other, and they put me on a plane and I went home. That's what make me understand that they know. Everybody
Mm.
know. You know what I mean? And now we're talking about the situation of human trafficking. Now we have these films like Sound of Freedom. By the way, guys, like if you didn't see it, I'm strongly recommend you to see because it's such a huge awareness tool and you're gonna understand how was this crazy, well-oiled machine of human trafficking, and nobody's safe. You know, you're thinking
Mm.
like, oh yeah, sure, she was on drugs, and her family was alcoholics and everything. You know, in this time of the social media, the grooming. Remember, I was talking, and why I'm doing like that? It's like it's alluring. You
Mm.
know, when you're fishing and you're trying to get that little fish with something shiny, and that shiny right now can be anything. Like after COVID, it can be a belonging, attention, being part of something, you know,
Mm.
being loved, being cared for. Like, and now people work and busy. So those kids like on internet or on social media, oh my gosh, they are little prey because the predator's there and they're not evil. Remember how I told you about that wonderful lady who loved me and cared for me? That's
Mm.
how they are. But this is their job. This is the job, so you don't figure out that it's evil, because what you do when you know it's evil, you run another way. So you need to be in that, you know, like have those blinders on, you know, to know that, oh, they actually have all the different ways to approach. So for example, like there's like Romeo, you know, and he thinks like, oh, look, she needs love and care. So they have that approach. There's another girl who talking about problems with the father. Oh, so she needs like father figure. So she needs mother. Like, you know, they literally playing on all of ours like basic needs,
Mm.
you know, being loved, being for me it was like even like being fed and dressed, you know, that bazaar. But now, because even in this amazing country where we have everything, you know, our kids are still lonely and busy,
Mm.
and they looking for that. They prey on that like psychological needs, and they feed us what we need. And that's how easy to get trapped. Anyone, even people from a good, wonderful family, but if they are busy and working and they teen just alone and lonely, especially with times of like anxieties and depression, they will give that to that teen, and then it's gonna be trouble.
Wow. That's true. I mean, that's how it works. And I guess what you're saying is they don't come as evil; they appear as angels of light, right? And that's exactly what the Bible says. When you think of Satan, he's not gonna appear and be like, "Oh, he's awful. I don't want to follow that guy." They're gonna appear as people who will pretend to love you and pretend to care for you. That's deep, and that's a call to awareness, maybe to people, because like you're saying, right, on social media and our phones, it's everywhere, and it's so easy to fall into
Absolutely.
these traps and be lured in. What was the prayer you were praying when they took you to the Wailing Wall, and you said there was a prayer that God answered? What was the prayer you were praying?
Absolutely. First of all, now I'm so blown away and grateful to God that He gave me this opportunity. And I do believe I encounter Holy Spirit even as a non-believer, although they say like you have to accept the Christ into your heart. But remembering how it felt, and now when I'm praying for people and I have this encounter, I know exactly that God met me there in this way. And actually, when I was praying, I knew exactly who I was. And I think like that sense of shame and all those dark deeds that I saw in front of my eyes actually make me humble, and that be bend that knee and surrender to God and tell him that I'm a sinner. That time, like, I didn't use this lingo because that time I didn't know it's called sinner. I just knew that I'm so bad and I need this divine intervention, because I had like this crazy belief that if God not step in, it's not gonna happen, because my grandfather was like a father to me. And that's why I said father that time, because my grandparents actually took me into their house in right right before that, like all the discord happened. So I had some time in my life when I was very young, maybe 6 7 years old, when I actually had this an amazing life with my grandparents, when they disciplined me, they trained me, they taught me how to read and write, they taught me how to play chess, understand the clock, they took me to vacation. So it was like normal life. And I love them, and that's why I lied to them, so they didn't know where I was and what was happening to me at this point. And there, when my grandfather had a heart attack, he was in coma, and I saw this like crazy dream. And if you guys ever read my book, it's like I do believe that that's how God speaks to us through dreams, and I'm very visual as well. So I saw a dream and I knew that my grandfather is dying. When I call my grandmother, she always lied to me. Not in a bad way, but she always says, "Oh, you're in another country by yourself." And she thought I'm doing some, I don't know, work. But she said, "We are here together and you take care of yourself." And she was trying to care for me and protect me. But I said to her, "What's happening with my grandpa?" And she's like, "Who told you this?" And I'm like, "Oh, so what's going on?" And she said, "He is in a hospital." And she said, "He's in coma." But that's what triggered me. She said, when the doctor come out and he said, now it's in God's hands. And it's very interesting that they say that, because my country in those times like was like completely, there was like no faith, no relationship with God, there was not even religion, it was so messed up. So it's like I cannot even say they were all atheists, but in my city, you will know that there was a discord. So when people would say it's in God's hands, that means like we wash our hands and we cannot do anything about it. So there you go. If he survived, then it's on God. If he dies, it's on God. So, but when she said that to me, I'm like, okay, if if she's saying that this is in God's hand, we have to go and ask God for help. And I go to my bodyguard, who actually took on his day off, he took me into Jerusalem. But it was so interesting because I have this humongous faith that God will do it for him. And I said that to God when I was praying. I say, God, not for me. I know I don't deserve anything. I know who I am. I know I'm not worthy. I'm not even worthy of this audience. I don't worthy that you show up for me or hear me or respond to me. But for him, please. So I was pleaded for his life because I knew if my grandpa passed away, my grandma goes right after him. And I was like, I was so lost. I didn't know what to say. I just was saying the same thing. I know that I'm not worthy, but please save him. And I put my hands like on that wall, and it was so interesting because it was like, I don't know, 60 degrees heat, but the wall was actually cool. And if you guys don't know what is the Wailing Wall is, it's actually the place where Jesus prayed, like when he walk the earth that days. But the coolest part that it's original. I think it's 2 feet original, and the rest of it they build it so it's look better. So it's interesting that I put my hands and the wall was like very cool. And I was like, why it's cool? It's so bizarre. It shouldn't be like this stone should not be cool. And I had like this mind-blowing peace come over me. And it was such an amazing experience because I had like full body experience, and I knew 100% that my grandpa gonna be okay. And then he recovered after coma. He didn't have any issues, not with his speech, not with his body. You know, sometimes after the heart attack, that's huge. Like you need to do like recovery and stuff like that. But honestly, there was like no signs of him being like almost dead whatsoever. And what interesting though, when I come back home, I chickened down to tell him that I pray for him. But he was wearing a cross, which is like
Wow.
my grandparents were like, oh, we did everything ourselves. They've been raised in like communism and all that stuff. So they would never give like any glory to anything else or anyone else. And it was so interesting because like he was like wearing this little cross. And I'm like, what is that? And I was walking with my grandpa and he said to me, God saved me.
Wow.
But I was so new in my faith that I
Okay.
chickened down to tell him because I thought like he's gonna be like, I don't know, bashing on me because that's always been happening all my life. But then he said to me that God saved me, and I'm like, wow, this is great. So yeah,
Did
amazing
did you ever
experience.
tell him? Did you ever end up telling him that you did pray for him, or did you
I
just
didn't. I
never?
didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, I
But
actually
somehow he
when I
knew.
come back. Yeah. He said to me that God saved him. I
Yeah.
didn't tell him that it was me have any part of it, so it was really cool.
Wow, that's incredible. It reminds me of this verse that came to my mind, Acts 2:17, where it says, "In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit upon all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions, and your old men will dream dreams." What an epic story. I mean, that's incredible. I'm sure we can go into many other details, but I would
Oh
love
yeah.
to dive a little bit into like the redemptive side of now having a family, because I think on my view at least, right, and for sure you'll tell your experience, but from my end I feel like what you were experiencing is like the complete opposite of what a family it's supposed to be in the end, right? Like I think, like I have 3 kids, right, and I have my wife, and And I think it's just the biggest joy and gift I've ever been given as a human, to have a family where I can, see them grow and take them to the park and play soccer and do like fun things. So how did you get there, right? And how's that played a role? I mean, has it been redemptive, or let's just talk about like how did you get to having your own family, and what does that mean to you?
Well, when I came to Canada, I actually and start learning English. It was time for me to actually dream and to choose my life, because I had the opportunity to start from the clean slate per se. So I actually applied and graduated from cosmetology course, government credit course, because I didn't have any money. So for the newcomers, they offer this amazing opportunity. So I took it. And actually, one of the ladies, receptionist, she said to me, because I was like almost 1.5 year I was in Canada, and she said, you will not pass this test. And I'm like, you know what, let me fail on my own, don't tell me. And I was like, from 100 people, I was there was 30 people chosen to do this cosmetology course, and I was one of those 30 people, and actually end up being one of the few people who, after finishing that course, became a hairstylist and owned their business. So never listen to the doubters, okay? Just
I
like if
like
you
that.
have a dream, go after it. That was my point. And then it was very interesting because I was definitely not fitting for this society, because like I was trying to figure out um, how to speak, how to dress, how to behave, because now I was clean, was no drugs, and the behavior have to be changed to be normal. And I do quotation marks because normal, it's so different for me now, but I try to imitate the normal people. And I decide, okay, so you need the titles, you need diplomas, trophies, medals, anything that I could fill this void and feel that I'm worthy and valuable, And I went to this crazy achieve mode. I started building my empire. I called it, and all of these accomplishments, it was like just very temporary celebration. And there was empty. I still was like really rude, obnoxious, and very, very angry. I was broken. This is like just not, the trauma does not disappear because your circumstances are changing. And then I met this boy, and honestly, he did not fit into my plan, but I fall in love with him. He was another shiny man into like that came into my life, and he was a Christian. And that's what attracted me to him, because he treated me like a lady. I don't know how he sat through that all this nonsense, but yeah, so I ended up being part of this Christian family, and he was actually a pastor kid.
Wow.
And so interesting though that I fell in love. I fell in love, and now I understand. I fell in love in Jesus and this man, but that time I didn't know. And Jesus loved me through that man, the way I needed to be loved. And then I got pregnant. Our beautiful baby girl was born, and I wanted to be a good wife and a mother, but my past tormented me. And it's very interesting because I want him to know everything. I actually wrote him a letter because I knew that I would not marry me, because I did not deserve a healthy family, healthy relationships. But he actually said to me, your past is between you and God. So I love you for who you are now. And honestly, ladies, you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, I need that one in my life so my trouble disappear. But you know what? It still was a hard path, because he didn't know our trauma was like colliding all the time. So I do believe that we're survived by the grace of God. So I was working on my mental health, because now I honestly, I didn't realize how bad my anxieties and depressions are, because now I'm clean. I chose to be clean, not doing drugs or booze or anything, and actually deal with the life on clean for this man and for this baby. But honestly, some women dream about this life. I thought I'm gonna be dead by then. So I have nothing in my imagination, instead that now it was here and I was responsible for this little human being. And oh my goodness, I know why God allowed this to happen to me then, because I assumed if I get all these like trophies, diplomas, if I get the title, if I gonna be a wife, if I gonna be a mother, if I have a clean home, then I gonna have peace. But it didn't happen. It was the one of the worst experiences of my life, to go to through postpartum depression on my own, with no help, with no support, with no drugs, with no medication. And I was responsible again for this tiny baby. And you know what the devil came to do? He wreaked the havoc on my mental health, because he gave me like vision. I could feel it again, to holding that little casket in my hands. I could smell the smell in the hospital. I could see her little body and clothes of my first child that I buried when I was a kid.
Mm.
And it was so bad. I had so much fear. I brought my little baby to the hospital probably 100 times, and they just say, "Oh, she's teasing. Oh, she has a fever. You okay? You okay?"
Mm.
And then my husband says, well, that time my boyfriend, he said, "You're a good mom. Stop it. You're not in control of life and death. God is." And honestly, when he said that, and I wasn't a Christian, but I want this burden to taken away, because I thought if she gonna die, he will kick me out, because he gonna say that I'm useless wife and a mother, because I was. And then I end up in the streets doing drugs again, and that's end of my life. But giving all to God, knowing that my husband gonna be, not blaming for me for anything, because he see how hard I strive to be the best person I can be for this family. It's literally like it just gave me so much hope. And then I started going to church with his family, just to be, just impress his parents and be like, because that time we wasn't married, and they're like, "Oh, you living in sin." I'm like, "What is that?" Back home, they have like, back home, the what is that union? Like for the government, as long as like your couple paying your taxes together, like what is this union called? But
Civil
uh,
union, I guess.
yeah, something like that. So you don't really need to marry it or anything. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not his wife? I have his child. I'm washing his clothes. I'm cooking for him. Like, and we're loyal to each other. We're doing all the marriage stuff. But anyway, so I went there, and there I went to Alpha course, and on the third day of Alpha course, I give my life to Christ. And
Wow.
I kid you not, like I have like this another body experience, just like I had at that Berlin Wall, because I felt like so much peace, and I was so overwhelmed, and I was crying. And yeah, God give me like this peace beyond all understanding. And actually now Philippians 4:9, it's been my life verse, because honestly, Christ always show up with his peace. Like he never refused me peace. And this is one thing that I could not earn, deserve, buy it, get it. No drugs, no anything could give me this sense of like, I'm okay, I'm fine. And guess what? I'm still like not on medication. I'm still went through everything on the drive. But when I give my life to Christ, I literally like my anxieties disappear, and my depression, like I still have them, but I'm deal with them like completely different. Sometimes like it's constructive. I cannot say like, oh, my traumas all disappear and everything's gone. But like I know I'm a new creation because
Mm.
I'm so healed. And the amazing part, my body is healthy, like my liver is healthy. Do you know like that people who use like heroin, crack, coke, alcohol, they're not okay. They're not okay mentally, they're not okay physically. Their lungs have holes, their liver like rotting. I have none of that. Like literally, like they check everything in my body after I have like twins and some issues with my health. So I'm like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I have like these checkups, like my blood test, like off the charts. Like you cannot do this by yourself. And the fact that like I'm sleeping and I'm calm and like it's just amazing. So I know 100% that when I got baptized, God heal my body, mind, and soul. But of course, it took me a long while. Now it's been 20 years, what you're seeing today. I'm still doing coaching. I'm still doing therapies now when I'm smarter and I know that God provides like so many different avenues to be and with the church and with the small group and sharing your burdens and learning. I'm still improving, but oh my goodness, I'm so glad that like that he gave me this time to experience everything by myself and try to get everything on my own. And when I got everything, I still was like, I was worse than I had like nothing. But it's kind of like was bizarre because this desire to have everything, an assumption that then you get the peace, then you get worth, then you get value, then you get everything. And I got everything and I had nothing.
Mm.
And only now with Christ, remember the beginning of our podcast recording, I am a princess, I have inheritance, I have a crown, I belong, I'm a child of God. And you know what, it's like above and beyond that give me and worth and value. I don't have to be anything else, I'm already am.
That's so much fire right there. That's so good, Lena Cebula. And I just want to say for the people that maybe don't know what Alpha Course is, because you mentioned that as kind of where you gave your life to Christ, it's a tool that Christians use where they get to invite people who are non-Christian, and you watch a video, and it usually has questions, right? And then the people that are not non-Christian, they get to ask the questions. You don't need to pretend like you know the answer or anything. It's just like, okay, I believe there's a God, or maybe there's no God. And it's just a welcoming place. And I love that you mentioned that, because I think I'm thinking of maybe doing a future podcast with people from Alpha. So that would be so great. You want to say
And
something?
by the way, if you post my website, on my website, I have a resources page and Alpha course
Mm.
there as well. So you guys can go and check it out. And what's cool about it, that they're talking about faith in Jesus and non-judgmental
Mhm.
atmosphere. So like anybody can come and just learn. And you know what? If it's yours, take it. If it's not this time, nobody gonna pressure you or do anything. So it's very cool. But yeah, that's
That's
a
so
really
cool.
cool tool.
Okay, thank you, Lena. So we're gonna go into our final part of the episode. I wish we could talk more, but I guess
I
that's why you have
know.
a book. But we're gonna go through our emojis, and this is what I want to do to finish the episode. I want you to think, as you answer like each emoji, I want you to think of people that are maybe on the spectrum of this industry, right? Whatever end of the spectrum they might be. They might be people who are being lured into it. There might be people who are already in it, and they somehow found this podcast and your story. So I want you to think about them as you answer these emojis, and I guess it'll be a hopeful walk through the emojis. I think because your story is so valuable, and what God has done through you, and God's going to use it. All right, so here we go. We're going to start with our blasphemous emoji. So from your vantage point, what is the worst idea out there?
I think the lies that we believe about the enemy, that this is not the problem that happening around us, that it's so camouflaged that we believe like, oh, it's the problem like in happening like human trafficking happening in some third world country, not here. So please, please watch your kids, watch your family member, like like learn the red flags, learn about these issues, because when you will be vigilant and you're gonna be watching. So the people who are groomed right now for human trafficking, and if you assume why this guy like so nice to me, like why this is happening, because people don't give you money for nothing, people don't give you and shower you with all this extra. And I know God put this little thing like common sense, or that like trigger alarm, that we feel like danger, danger. When you feel that, just follow through on that, because something is there. Please don't do any rash decision. For people who already there, and something really happening, they have like some pictures of you or whatever it is, because that's how they actually keep people around, because they use shame and fear and condemnation. So if you're already there, know that you're not alone and you have hope, because wherever you are, if you ask for help anyhow that you can, please, please ask for help. If you cannot speak, write a letter, like give the letter to one person that you trust. If you like trapped somewhere that you actually physically cannot be like out, find a way, call 911 or your local police services. Find someone, tell someone, and they're gonna come and help you. Like, this is another lie that I want to break, that you're alone, that you're so shameful, so not worthy of being rescued and saved. This is lie. And I don't want you to believe that. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you have a desire to be done and run away or been rescued, you have that choice. You have a choice. You have a choice. And for people who just come out from it and think that you're not worthy to be loved, that you're not worthy to be have peace or to belong, that's another lie. You are worthy. You are significant. Your life is valuable. And guess what? One day God will use this mess for your message, and you're going to be thriving. Just, you know what? There's no due date on healing. It's been 20 years for me, and I've been sharing my story for 3 years. In the beginning I was like crying and I was saying, God, why are you making me do this? People already know me, like I have this carefully crafted persona that I hide behind, of success and the mother of 3 kids, and I was part of the church. And you know what? God took me back to write my autobiography and into the past. He want me to look back with him when I already loved, saved, redeemed, forgiven. And you know what it did? It brought me freedom, because I have so much compassion on that little Lena. I reconciled with my family. I see this is was just happening. This is part of life. And you know what he did? I'm doing this for other people now. I support women to see this like God's heart through mentoring them and coaching them. I want them to be unconfident and assertive individuals despite of trauma. How would I do that without knowing all this trauma and knowing that it's possible to overcome? You know how I know? Because I am that person who walked through this hell to heaven. And I do believe that heaven starts now. Do you think my life is perfect? No. Do you think everything is perfect? No. But I know that God will never leave me, never forsake me, never give up on me. And remember that I was building my empire. So when God came into my life, he said, now you're gonna work for my kingdom. And now I hear the Holy Spirit saying to me every time, after like even podcasts like this, I feel so fired up. And he's like, isn't this better? And yes, it is so much better. I'm so grateful to be a mom and a wife and a housekeeper. And I'm so grateful for this life I live. And guess what? I'm grateful for my past too. Because without this past, I wouldn't be this woman who I am now. And I love this woman. Remember, she's child of God, the daughter of the king. And I want you to think about that too. I want you to look at me, hear me, and say, if she can do it, I can do it. If God did this for her, God do it for me. And he will come into your life. He's not gonna force, he's not gonna pressure you. But if you honestly say, God, like, I'm bad, I don't deserve this, but this woman say that you have this amazing free gift of salvation. Please come into my life and be my Lord and Savior and do the stuff that you did for her, and see what happened. Because I know my God, he loved to show up and show off. So there you go.
So good. Wow, I love how you said, isn't this better? And I think that's the hope Jesus offers, Jesus Christ, and it's so hopeful. Okay, Lena, so we're gonna end the episode where do you want to point people to know, get your book or know your story more or find the resources you were mentioning?
Absolutely. You guys can go and look through my website, and it's lenacebula.ca, so lenacebula.ca, and there's so many like cool things, like you can learn about the church, about Alpha Course. There's people that I partner up over the course of my work that you can actually look and see what they doing, and for human trafficking, and like in general, their work is amazing. The people like on the ground doing such amazing work to help other people. So from there, you can listen to my podcast, which called Love and Beloved, and I do believe that's what we here for. And you can purchase my book from there as well. So if you wanted to have a signed copy, you can email me at lenacebula@gmail.com. And honestly, if you just Google my name, you can find me on all the social media. You know, my son goes to me like, Mom, you're famous. But isn't that funny? Because I was hiding for half of my life and I would never go public. And now I'm public with God, and I'm just asking like, invite me. So if you guys hear this podcast, like, or see this video and say like, oh, I have a platform, I love this woman, please invite me, because I love sharing my story. I love encouraging people. I love talking about Jesus and about myself, you know. So yes, and I love talking in general. So yeah, invite me to speak.
So good. All right, my friends, there you have it. What an amazing, hopeful episode. Just want to remind you that we are on every single platform: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Roku TV, Facebook, YouTube, like all of those. I even have a show in Spanish with my wife. That's really awesome, but it's in Spanish. So for those Spanish speakers out there, go check it out. The best way is to visit us at christianpodcast.com, and then you can find all the resources there too, and links to all the episodes. Thank you for being here.